Right, hi folks. So this is my daily vlog. This is day 2 of the daily vlogs. Today I wanted to talk about this course that I went on. I'll just show you the thing. So that was intuitive recovery. That's the workbook that they give you. You do it over a 4 day, so a 4 or 5 day period, and I found it really interesting. It's very well put together and literally is very intuitive, as they say. And I like some of the stuff that they were talking about. Do you know what I mean? For instance, this bit about the amygdala. They've got a little diagram here, you see, and sort of like how the brain works and how addiction works within the brain and what have you, sort of thing. Like I say, I found it really fascinating. Really good. Really enjoyed it, and it's making me look at addiction in a whole different way, to be quite honest. And one of the other interesting things, as a little side note, as it were, sort of thing, the origin of the word, which I actually googled as well to just check out, but they do say, and I think they mention it in the book itself as well, but the trainer was telling us about it. The word addict, original origins and its meaning, was a debt slave, a person who had been bound as a slave to his creditor. It was like, I think it was an ancient Roman term, addictus, and so addictus, slave for debtors. So that was flipping mind blowing, to be quite honest. I didn't realise. A debtor insolvent fell into the hands of the creditor following the award of the magistrate. The figure was typical of archaic Roman law. The lender was entitled to hold the debtor in chains in his private prison or cell, or to sell him or her as a slave, or even to kill him. Apparently, you know what I mean? If you was in debt and you couldn't pay the debt, and you were then enslaved to that person, and that person then could forfeit your life. I mean, I know it sounds pretty flipping, compared to today, sort of thing. Although I know that we still got a few issues around these sort of things, and I don't know to what extent. When you read that, it sounds really barbaric, but probably the chances are that there's a heck of a lot more just as bad stuff that goes on these days as well. But anyway, the point is that that's where the origins of the word addict comes from. Somebody that was in debt, was a debt slave, essentially. So you went to somebody, you borrowed, I don't know, you borrowed some money or whatever off this person, and then you try and pay it back, and maybe you can't for whatever reason, and you can't pay your creditor back. So then they were entitled, through the laws as it was back in them ancient times, that person could then have you as a slave. And in some ways that made a lot of sense as well, because you become a slave to your addiction, essentially. You become a slave to whatever drug of choice that is your particular poison, if you like. And I just thought that was really fascinating and interesting, and do you know what I mean? It's amazing how words, their origins and their meanings, and if you look them up and trace the history of these things, how the modern usage of those words still may have some significance and reflect to some degree how they're still used in this day and age, but maybe in a slightly different way, if you see what I mean. But yeah, was quite mind-blowing to me, to be quite honest. I thought addict was a relatively modern word, to be quite honest. I thought an addict, or somebody you call an addict, or addiction, I thought that was a relatively new word that had been coined in I don't know, the 20th century or the 19th century or something. I don't know how far back in that sense it goes, but I just assumed that that's when it was created, that the term came about then, and then became much more of a everyday used word, if you like, more or less in the late 20th century and early part of this century, obviously. And I think it's gained more sort of usage in the last 30 odd years or whatever, I guess, perhaps. There's much more about addiction, and it's much more out there than it ever used to be in that sense, in the terms of being within the public arena, sort of thing, spoken about and spoken about in mainstream media and so forth and what have you. So I guess in some ways I always thought it was a modern term. I didn't realise that it had ancient origins to that actual word. And when you think about the ancient origins of it, the sort of correlations between being an addict of, being addicted to a substance, compared to when you were in debt to somebody and they were a slave, the sort of correlations between the two things is quite interesting when you think about it. Because I don't know, I mean, then you've got to wonder whether there was a conscious decision to use that word whenever it became more popular within the medical, whether that was in the 19th century, the 20th century, I'm not sure. I must admit, I don't know that. But whenever that word then became popularised within the medical circles or whatever, and then wider out, then further into obviously into the public domain. Sorry, I'm going to make sure I don't have that on while I'm doing these vlogs, actually, and I just have to keep leaning over and switching the what's this blah 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 blah. So yeah, so I completely lost my thread. I've completely distracted myself. So, but in terms of the word addict, like I say, I don't know if there was a conscious decision to use that by them, whoever originally coined that phrase, perhaps, you know what I mean, like the first professor, the first psychiatrist that sort of labelled people that used drugs or alcohol or whatever as an addict or whatever. I don't know, not sure exactly how that originated, how that came about, but was it a conscious decision because they knew the origins of the word themselves? So they knew, because don't forget, I mean, doctors in particular and psychiatrists, at least years back, were taught in Latin, weren't they? They sort of, and there's a lot of medical terms that use a lot of Latin. So maybe there was a conscious decision to use that word because it kind of correlated and related to a person who was addicted to a substance, or maybe it was an unconscious thing. That in itself, I think, is fascinating. Do you know what I mean? Was it a conscious decision to use that word because of its connotations from history and the relation that you could, it's got a sort of connotations of it. It's got the relationship to it somehow. You know what I mean? It's because when you think about, like I said, the fact that you're indebted and then become a slave. Some people say that they're a slave to their drug, whatever that drug might be or whatever that substance is. Do you know what I mean? You become a slave to it. You feel that you've got to go out of your way and do stuff that perhaps if you weren't addicted to that substance you wouldn't normally do. Do you know what I mean? You go out thieving. You go out, whatever it is, whatever it takes for you to get the supply of your drug, whatever it might be, do you know what I mean? And however you go about it, sort of thing, maybe you go out of the bounds of what, if you want to put it in terms of being well, some people see it as an illness in that sense, or a disease. Some people class it, some people say it's an illness or a disease. Again, I'm not going to get into whether that is the right terminology or the correct way of framing that thing. it's a bit of a minefield anyway, and even the experts can't really agree. I mean, in America, I think the medical, because it is in the DSM-5, I believe, alcoholic at least is. I'm not sure about drug addict. Maybe it is. I would imagine it possibly is, because very similar, if not the same kind of thing, just a different substance. But in America, that I believe that they do class it as an illness or a disease, whatever. So it's in the classification of diseases. But in this country, in England, it's not recognised by the medical fraternity as a disease or an illness in that sense. So, like I say, you know what I mean? I'm not going to get into the debate about whether it is or whether it isn't, sort of thing. Personally, I feel like very much on the fence on that subject. And I'm sure I have mentioned before, and I have no qualms about mentioning the fact that I am an alcoholic myself, in recovery, I'm glad to say. And, I've not had a drink in 4 years, and I'm quite happy about that, and hopefully that will remain so. But so knowing from personal experience about my own addiction in that sense, that, if you ask me, do I think it's a disease that I've got? Do I think it's an illness that I've got? I don't know. I mean, I've heard both schools of thought. Do you know what I mean? And I've heard, and this can't even speak now. This intuitive recovery, they are in the camp of like, well, no, it's not a disease, and it's not a dysfunctional brain. Your brain is responding and acting in a perfectly healthy, normal way. It's just that your addiction has hijacked what that part of your brain, the amygdala, would normally ordinarily do, sort of thing. It's just the priorities, the way it prioritizes things to keep you alive, because that's essentially what it does. The amygdala regulates your body temperature. It sort of it's your fear response. Other things as well. I can't remember off the top of my head. It escapes me for a minute, but essentially it's a non-thinking part of your brain. It doesn't have any thoughts of its own in that sense, you know what I mean? But it sends those signals to the cortex of the brain saying, right, we need X, Y, and Z to stay alive. Do you know what I mean? Whether that's water, food, we need to get warmer because it's too cold, or whatever sort of thing, you know what I mean? The thing is that, and then our thinking brain is the part that has got all the motor skills and whatever sort of thing, and the communication skills to enable us to get those things that we need to keep us alive. So whether it's water, food, or whatever. So from the intuitive recovery point of view, your amygdala, that part of your brain is functioning perfectly fine. It's just that the addiction has hijacked the normal processes, if you like. Now, again, I don't, that's a very simplified way, and I'm reiterating it from what I learnt from that training. I might not have, absorbed every nuance of how they explained it. Do you know what I mean? So, I've probably simplified it quite substantially compared to how. But check it out yourselves if you want to just check it out, and see what they have to say about it. Not necessarily do the course, but just well, again, that's entirely up to whoever's watching this. Like I say, for me. And by the way, yeah, that's sorry. I'll just mention the fact that course isn't just for people with addiction issues, from what I understand. People who want to further their training and their understanding, if they're working with people with those issues, or with complex needs issues and whatever sort of thing, it's a good course to go on to understand a bit more about the nature of addiction and how it works and so forth. And I definitely recommend it for that, absolutely. And again, like I say, I don't necessarily tell people what they should or shouldn't do in terms of their own personal issues. That's entirely up to them. It's down to the individual to decide for themselves what they think will help and work for them in their life to make to improve their life, if that's what they want to do. Do you know what I mean? So far be it from me to tell anybody what they should or shouldn't do. But like I say, for me, I find it really, really interesting and fascinating. And like I say, the thing is, whether you classify it as an illness or not, again, my school of thought on it is that I have to decide for myself and work out for myself how best can I help myself to stay clean, if you like, and to stay away from substances, whether it's other substances, but mine's mostly about alcohol anyway. So will intuitive recovery be much more helpful to me, and will it be much more helpful for me to believe that, you know, it's not necessarily an illness or whatever, or a disease or whatever. And I do generally tend to err more towards scientific methods and scientific thinking, to be quite honest. I must admit I'll trust that much more than I'll trust something that's a little bit kind of can't quite, you know, I was going to say airy-fairy, but I don't mean to be flippant or disrespectful or anything. I can't find a better way of phrasing that at the minute. But, you know, like I say, it's down to the individual. And like I say, for me, I go to AA, and I have done from the day I, you know, first thought that I need to get some other help other than what I've tried before. And it has worked for me, do you know what I mean? And I do like AA, and I love what AA does and all the rest of it. But, like I say, it's not necessarily for everybody. And, you know, since I've been doing the intuitive recovery, it has made me question some aspects of the AA doctrine and so forth and what have you, sort of thing. It's made me question some of those aspects of AA, sort of thing. But that's, again, that's purely for me. Do you know what I mean? And again, I'm not trying to sit here and say, oh, AA's rubbish and don't this and blah 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 blah. Absolutely not, because AA's been around for nearly 80 years, and it's helped save countless people's lives, countless. I don't know, millions. It could be millions. I have no idea. I don't even know if there's anybody out there that's got any real stats on it. Do you know what I mean? Maybe they have, maybe they haven't. But the thing is that, you know, like I say, sorry, I've just completely put myself off because of this flipping screen turning blue. Completely threw me because it went blob, and it's like, sorry, just really annoys me. Sorry, completely fluffed everything there. What was I saying? God, that must be really, I mean, oh, never mind. So, yeah, like I say, this intuitive recovery thing, I like it. I think it's got a lot of good stuff to it. There's some, again, you see, that's the thing as well. Again, there's some aspects of the intuitive recovery that I don't like either. There's some of the views that the trainer themselves had. Now, they said that that's just personal views to them, not necessarily views from the organisation or the thing of intuitive recovery. But intuitive recovery kind of... again, I don't want to put words in people's mouths. Sorry, now my computer's decided it's going to buzz at me. Oh, sorry. Ooh, that computer sometimes really tests my patience. It's really professional, isn't it? Really, well, mind you. Why am I trying to be professional anyway? I'm not. I don't know. I didn't want to. What's that? It doesn't look very good. So I'm leaning over here, leaning over there. Oh God, I'm taking myself way too seriously, aren't I? But yeah, like I said, the thing is that intuitive recovery has also got aspects of it that I'm not wholly happy with or necessarily agree with, because again, they talk about mental illness to some degree, and I think that's a different thing altogether, to be quite honest. And I think they're treading into areas that, you know, stick with addiction, fine. Do you know what I mean? Or whatever. You know what I mean? I think they got it more or less spot on. I like a lot of what they say, and I kind of, and it is intuitive and it does feel right, and I think, wow. And I'm talking just for myself here. I'm not trying to advocate, like I said. I am not here to promote either AA or them. Do you know what I mean? This isn't what this is about. I'm just explaining my personal experiences of it. Do you know what I mean? For me, like I said, it's I found I find both of those organisations, if that's the way you want to phrase it, useful and helpful. Do you know what I mean? And I think they've got good aspects and some aspects that are not maybe that good necessarily either, sort of thing. But overall, I think they're both amazing and do some amazing work and really do a lot of good in this world. Do you know what I mean? Now, there was something else I was going to link that to a minute ago, and because I distracted myself a second ago, I've completely kind of lost the thread of that. I'm trying to remember it, but great. Anyway, yeah. So, like I say, that this, both of these things are really, really good, and really, really helpful, useful. Oh yeah, sorry, I was trying to get just very quickly. I wanted to touch on the mental health side of things because that's one aspect that I think, in fact, well, I don't know. And again, it varies. It varies from group to group sometimes, because I have heard in some very rarely. It's not dominant necessarily throughout AA. But I've come across some views here and there where some views are kind of like, kind of what the psychiatrists know anyway, da 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 da. You know what I mean? Don't take that medication because you're still effectively or essentially using, even though it's a prescribed drug, because you've got a mental health issue or whatever. I've heard that. Not often. Most often, people's attitudes are, we're not experts, we're not a psychiatrist, we're not a doctor. If your doctor's told you need to take that tablet, you take it, plain and simple. Do you know what I mean? If that's what helps you keep you alive and well and so forth. But sometimes you do come across that, and like I say, this particular trainer also had a similar kind of take on to in terms of mental health, but they didn't really go into any details, so I don't know, and I didn't question them afterwards about it enough, perhaps, or at all really when I think about it. And maybe I should have got a better understanding of what they were trying to say. Perhaps I misinterpreted or misunderstood what they were trying to say. So I'll give them that. Do you know what I mean? Because I do believe that mental illness is a completely different kettle of fish, in the sense that there are some actual physical brain disorders, and they, you can't just, do a course like intuitive recovery or whatever, and this, that, and the other, and it's a bit like the old adage that you used to say about people with depression. Do you know what I mean? Oh, just pull yourself together, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Oh, what's the matter with you? Stop. This, that, and the other, sort of thing. That's not helpful or useful, and it's neither helpful or useful to say to people that just do this course or just do that or just look at it this way or blah 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 and then you'll be well or whatever. Do you know what I mean? When it comes to mental illness, I think there's something that still needs a lot more research and study and so forth. And again, don't get me wrong, I'm not necessarily saying that the psychiatrists and the psychologists are absolutely spot on and know exactly what they're talking about and have got it absolutely sorted. Far from it. You know what I mean? I still, absolutely, there's a heck of a lot of improvement or room for improvement in terms of psychiatric treatments and in terms of the way the understanding of mental illness and so forth. There's a heck of a long way to go. I mean, another thing for me at the moment is in terms of environment, and how environment impacts on people, and in particular how the environment impacts on people's behaviour. And again, I've been watching Jack Fresco, and he's very big onto that and sort of what have you, sort of thing. And again, it's something I've always thought about, because I always go on about, I do, I've said it in my videos countless times, how when I'm going to go to a particular area or a particular place or whatever, and I'm very big on how the environment, that whatever you want to call it, and I don't just mean, like I say, the physical structures necessarily either, I just mean that the whole atmosphere, the whole whatever. I don't know how else to describe it exactly, but I'm very big on how an environment impacts on me, and how it makes me feel. And I think that is the same for all human beings. Essentially, I think we, you know, the environment that we're brought up in, the environment that we live in, the environment that we work in, all impacts on the way we behave. We might not realise it necessarily, because in lots of ways we're also conditioned. Do you know what I mean? Through our societies, whatever society you're in, you're conditioned to accept that that's the way it is. Do you know what I mean? And that's the way it's always been, or whatever sort of thing. And, you know, in a lot of ways, we're taught not to think for ourselves, and we're taught not to think outside of the box, and we're taught not to question what is established necessarily. And I'm very big on, no, actually, I want to question it. I want to understand, is there a different way? Can we do things differently? You know, that's me. I don't believe in static. That's why I love Jacques Fresco, and I love what the man says, and I really, really, really love what he, you know, what he's on about, sort of thing, and I really get what he's talking about, because I've always been like that sort of thing. And that's why I like Cenk Uygur and the Young Turks, because they're progressive as well. I mean, I don't always agree with everything that Cenk says. Again, you know, I go back to the zeitgeist stuff and what Jacques Fresco's talking about, getting rid of the monetary system, and so forth, and blah 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 blah. And again, I don't want to go into a big monologue about that necessarily, but you know, Cenk still believes that. Sorry, brain's going to sleep again. I was going to say democracy, but not necessarily democracy, because you can still have democracy in a sense, but capitalism. Do you know what I mean? Still believes that capitalism can be a force for good, which in some ways maybe it can, but you know, the thing is that you know, it's still based around the monetary system. And you know, from what I've watched, watch those movies. It's better if you watch that than rather than me try to explain it to you, because I'll make a lousy job of trying to explain it to you. And you know what I mean? If you watch the Zeitgeist, just look it up on YouTube. You can find it anywhere on YouTube. Zeitgeist movie is one of them, and then the Zeitgeist Amendment, amendment. Oh, I can't pronounce it properly, but anyway, just check them out. You'll see what I mean. And also, great, his name's now completely escaping me. There's the other guy as well, whose name, like I say, completely escapes me. He's been on Young Turks as well, funny enough. Jenks interviewed him. But he's made a series called Culture in Decline. And like I said, that series is 6 videos of that. If you watch those, they explain, in one of them in particular, around about the monetary system, explains it much more succinctly and much better than I do. But I believe totally in what those people are doing and what they're saying and what they're talking about. Because we need to progress, we need to move forward. We can't keep relying on the same systems, because this system is not finite. You know what I mean? It will eventually break down. It might not happen in my lifetime. It might not happen for the next 100 years, perhaps. I don't know. Obviously, I haven't got a crystal ball. If I did, I wouldn't be sat. Well, I'll be sat here, but I'll be sat here with a far better camera. I'll be probably maybe not sat here in this place. I might be somewhere else in a nice little cottage somewhere if I had a crystal ball, because obviously I'd be making a heck of a lot of money, because I'd be able to predict a few things that might make me a lot of money. So obviously I don't possess one of those things, and so therefore I can't predict what the future holds or doesn't, but it's definitely a foredrawn conclusion that the system that we have today in place, the monetary system, is eventually going to collapse one way or another. It can't be sustained, particularly as it is at this moment in time as well. It can't be sustained. You think it can, you think it can go on forever. Well, you know, at some point you're going to find that it is going to collapse. And like I say, it might not be in my lifetime, it might not be for another 100 years, 200 years, I don't know. I have no idea. But, you know, it's definitely not got much longer left in terms of useful. You know, it's shelf life, if you like, its usefulness is definitely, its use by date is definitely coming up very quickly. So, and when and just look at the world as it is at the moment. Just look at it. You know what I mean? What does the money? Who does the monetary system favour the most at this moment in time? And okay, you can try and change it, and some people are trying to. In America and in other countries as well, they're trying to change that system so that it favours everybody equally to some degree. And again, we're not talking about communism either. Some people might be thinking like, oh, the communists, because again, that's something else. I don't believe in ideologies. I really don't. That's another reason why I like Jack Fresco, because he doesn't either. Do you know what I mean? I don't believe in ideologies. It's a bit like I've said before. Opinions are like arseholes. We've all got one. Do you know what I mean? You'll have 20, 30 people all come up with a different idea or a different suggestion. Oh, I think it should be this, or I think it should be that, and blah, 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 blah. And basically you're just going to go around in circles. Do you know what I mean? And again, I don't want to go into because I could be sat here all night trying to explain how Jacques Fresco suggests we work that one. But the thing is that, like I say, and now I've completely again forgotten where I was taking this. Great, it's gone completely out of my head. Sorry. Well, like I say, the thing is that the monetary system and everything, it only favours the 1%ers in this world. It only favours the rich and the powerful. Do you know what I mean? They're the only people that are making gains these days. Do you know what I mean? The rest of us are either just about surviving. Some of us, are still managing to tick along or whatever quite nicely or whatever. But I think for the vast majority of people on this planet, life is extremely difficult, extremely hard, and a lot of people are in extreme poverty. Do you know what I mean? And the thing is, it doesn't need to be that way. We can change it. It can be different. It can. Do you know what I mean? I've seen some of the stuff, like I say, that these people are talking about, and it can be done. It's just about a willingness to do so. So, anyway, I think that's why I distracted myself, because I was going to go on to a bit about the communist way of view or whatever sort of thing. And again, on paper, the communist idea is a great idea, but as soon as you put it into practice, maybe not so. And again, like I say, I don't want to live under an ideology. I don't want to live under whatever. I want to live under a free society where everybody's provided for, and human beings try to look into much more, better ways of improving ourselves and improving our lot, if you like, or whatever. And again, it's not about utopia either. That's another thing. I don't want to live under a utopia, because once you get to utopia, what do you do? Do you know what I mean? I don't think you ever reach utopia anyway. I think it's an unobtainable thing, to be quite honest. I don't think you can ever reach utopia. And if you did, like I said, I think it'd be a sad day when you do, because the thing is, what motivates you then? What are you going to aim for? You've got everything absolutely perfect, 100%. No more problems, no nothing. What do you strive for? Do you know what I mean? What's the next thing to do? So I don't know. I'm not a philosopher. I'm not an intellectual. I do think a lot, and I do think a lot and quite deeply about stuff at times. I'm not always the most eloquent with my words. I'm not always that succinct, and I don't always necessarily, I feel, explain myself as clearly as I would like to be able to explain myself sometimes. But anyway, the thing is that, I kind of believe what I believe, and like I say, I think, we do need to take on board a lot of this stuff, what Jacques Fresco and other people like him are saying. Do you know what I mean? Maybe the sooner the better as well, really. But as he's pointed out, because some people have said, well, how are we going to get people to change? How are we going to get these systems changed? How are we going to do that? Well, really, I guess it's like anything with human beings, human beings very rarely change things, particularly if they're comfortable and happy and feel safe and all the rest of it, being in their comfort zone or whatever. Human beings don't like coming out of their comfort zone generally. I'm just as bad, you know what I mean? I do come out of my comfort zone and I do go and do things that scare me a little bit and challenge me a little bit. I feel that perhaps I need to do a little bit more of that. I don't think I do enough of it. I still try to maintain within that safe, comfortable bubble. But I do believe in trying to push myself a bit more and push myself out of my comfort zone and try new things and do things that are challenging and so forth. Because that's how we grow and learn. That's my belief anyway. But like I say, you know, vast majority of people are quite happy and comfortable to sit in their little safe bubble. And fair enough, you know what I mean? I'm not knocking that necessarily, and I'm not saying that, but it doesn't really help change and it doesn't help progress necessarily. It kind of, you just sit there and just do the same thing over and over again. You know, and like I say, I fully understand it and I fully get why human beings are like that. But until human beings get to a point where things become so painful, and when I say painful, either physically, mentally, or both of those things, whatever. So that could be where, you know, where we come to the brink of annihilation even. Do you know what I mean? If that's what it takes for human beings to change and to start adopting some of these ideas, then that's what it's going to take. I mean, you know, hopefully one would hope that, you know, we don't have to get to that point. You know what I mean? One would hope that perhaps, you know, enough people and people use people power rather than just the select few that are in power. Do you know what I mean? To make the decisions. Well, no, I think, you know, the people themselves, hopefully there's enough of us say, you know what, hang on, the way we're going, there's not going to be many of us left, so how about we do start trying to implement some of these ideas that some of these guys who are so forward thinking and so forth, you know, they've got some really amazing ideas. Let's look into them, let's see what the feasibilities are and so forth. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know. If that's what it takes though to get human beings to move and to change, then that's what it's going to take. You know what I mean? If it takes to the point where it's so painful for everyone that they say, you know, enough is enough. Do you know what I mean? And it doesn't look like it's got painful enough yet, to be honest, for the vast majority of people anyway. It really seriously doesn't look as if it's got that painful enough yet, because what's changed yet? Do you know what I mean? And okay, there seems to be signs of changing. You know, we've got Jeremy Corbyn in this country, so people seem to be, you know, apparently the Labour Party have had the biggest increase in people signing up to the Labour Party since the 1940s or something. I don't know the exact quotes or the exact numbers now, but apparently a heck of a lot since Corbyn sort of became the leader of the party or whatever. There's been a massive turnaround in terms of that. They've got great, his name now is getting, another person's name escapes me. Bernie Sanders in America, again, extremely popular. You know, really doing well in the polls and all the rest of it, because again he's a progressive and he wants to change the system and he wants to fight for the middle class, working class people. And again, you know, that's another thing I don't particularly like very much in terms of labels. Again, you know, labeling people are people. You know, I'm not saying that necessarily rich people are bad people either. Do you know what I mean? There is a lot of rich people that are very good people, decent people, honest people. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, for me, it's not about pitting your brother against your sister, this, that, and the other. It's about working collectively together. Do you know what I mean? Because we are one family on this planet. There is just this one planet that we live on at the moment. Do you know what I mean? Oh, okay, maybe somewhere down the line again, somewhere in the future. I have no idea. But maybe we might go off and colonise other planets maybe at some point. You know, in another 1,000 years, 2,000 years, 5,000 years, whatever. Do you know what I mean? I have no idea. But the point is, right at this moment in time, we live on one planet with a finite amount of resources. Do you know what I mean? And fighting amongst each other and fighting each other is not going to help us to progress and to survive, essentially. Again, various people throughout history, American presidents and so forth, you know, the first ones and what have you, I forget who off the top of my head, but not just them, but other people have said, a house that is divided against itself will fall. Do you know what I mean? And that's absolutely true. Do you know what I mean? The thing is, if you start fighting and squabbling amongst yourselves, what's going to happen? Do you know what I mean? So the thing is, it is a global thing, and it is about trying to work together and come together and help each other. Do you know what I mean? And you know, I've always believed in that. I've always been a big believer in cooperation and working together and helping each other. Do you know what I mean? Because, you know, we've got a lot of other issues that are going to hit us at some point. We've got this climate thing. Do you know what I mean? And again, I know some people don't believe in the old climate change and this, that, and the other, and blah, 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 blah. Do you know, it doesn't really matter in terms of what Tom, Dick and Harry down the road believe or not. Do you know what I mean? The thing is that the actual facts are there staring us in the face, plain and simple. You can deny it all you want. Do you know what I mean? The trouble is that, you know, ultimately it's going to have to be a global effort anyway. So one individual somewhere who says it's absolute nonsense, it's all a con and it's all this, that and da 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 blah blah blah. Well, go ahead, have at it, horse. You know what I mean? The thing is that you can do that until you're blue in the face. But if the rest of the world cottons on to the fact that, hang on, wait a minute, maybe we do need to do something, then the world's going to do something. Do you know what I mean? Simple as. And I can't see what necessarily the harm is in trying to you know, make a better environment for the human race, rather than just say, oh, it doesn't matter, just keep burning your fossil fuels or just keep pouring the oil into the sea, doesn't really matter, blah blah blah. Yeah, well, that's very selfish and self-centered view, if you ask me. And it's not, you know, it's very, very short-sighted and not forward-thinking. Do you know what I mean? So, but anyway, I know some people will completely disagree, and they're perfectly entitled to do so, and they're perfectly entitled to have their opinions. So I've had my little piece. So and I will be doing some more of these vlogs at some point. Anyway, this vlog I wasn't sure, to be quite honest, just how long I intended for these vlogs to go on for. But I quite enjoy having a natter at the camera, to be quite honest. And although I'm going to try and make my daily vlogs maybe a little less political or a little less ideological, or, well, in fact, no, in fact, like I said, I don't believe in ideology anyway, necessarily. I mean, okay, some people can argue again that, oh, well, you know, if you have an opinion about something and you believe a particular idea or a particular way of doing something, then surely that's still an ideology. Well, maybe. But like I say, you know, it's just, for me, it's just trying to live together and get on with people and try to make myself a better person, but also try to help. Excuse me. Try to improve the world in general. In a, you know, I'm not saying I'm going out there and I'm going to change the world. Obviously, do you know what I mean? I mean, within my own sphere of influence that I can, if I can. Do you know what I mean? Like I say, doing this peer mentor work, for instance, and helping other people like myself, hopefully circumvent having to go through some of the crap that I went through. Do you know what I mean? And if I can do that, then that's my little bit of contribution to trying to help to make the place and the world a better place, if I can. Do you know what I mean? I'm not having grandiose sayings here. I'm not saying that I'm going to go out there tomorrow and, you know, I'm going to change the whole world and everything's going to be, you know, the Coke advert from back in the 70s where, I can't remember how did the song go? Oh, God. Oh, damn, that's got my head in. Oh, I can't remember the name of the song now. There was a song, it was a Coca-Cola advert back in the 70s, blimey Charlie, and it was like that peace and love and hippie sort of thing, do you know what I mean? So, I like I say, I'm not saying that that's what I'm thinking of doing or whatever. I just mean within the sphere of influence that I have, which is very small, and it's just individual people that I'm working with, and hopefully in some small way I can help them, and then that may have a knock-on effect that they then go on to help other people and so on and so forth. So that's my little contribution, and I hope that just helps. And do you know what I mean? Anyway, I didn't intend to start waffling on about that. Anyway, this is going on way too long, and I am getting tired. And right, okay, vlog is now coming to an end. So this is daily vlog number 2. I hope you've enjoyed the vlog. Catch you guys later. Bye for now.